Alright, it's Saturday morning, and my job for today is to follow up on the water control and determine if we have more springs to develop, and if so, where, and give them some priority. Part of the motivation is driven by this deck over here and the water that accumulates just at the bottom of the hill. We had a lot of rain earlier this week, which may have not been record rain, but all the same, it did bring a lot and soaked a lot. So it made clear that the drainage systems that had once been in place here needed a lot of attention. So we set about trying to identify what had been installed previously, see what we could do to make it operational again, and try to dry out some of the wet spots in this yard. The water was a big motivation in us purchasing this place because it's adjacent to that private forest of ours, and I've always known there's water resources here. Years ago, 50 years ago or more, this was an active orchard, and the guy who ran the place managed to keep his orchard operational with the water that's available on the property here. But even here where I'm walking, I've got water that's sitting in the grass. So my brother, in an invested trying to start this project off, found what appears to have been a French drain that was run across, but not with pipe, just a trench with gravel in it. And here today, I'm finding something that I didn't actually expect. At the far end of this French drain, there is still a little water coming out from the hillside behind, but not much. But then again, that's what it looks like whenever I find a spring too. So I may dig over here, because this is one of the places that's going to affect the yard for the house. So if there's a spring up in that mess somewhere, I should try to find it and get it under control. Now, following this trench down, we see that even though it's hard for me to see with the sunlight, this part of the trench is looking fairly dry. This is where the water starts, but if we look up the hill, it's below where I found that spring earlier this week. So what we see in this trench here may be the remaining runoff that's coming down off the hillside that's still in the grass and in the lawn. I'm going to jump over the other side. And if you look here, for instance, you can see the water coming out of the hillside. So this water that's running in the trench right now does seem to be coming from up higher in the yard. Now this branch here was put in Thursday night, so we could drain and channel the water from the spring that I found at the top of the hill directly to where I want it to go for now, and try to get all of this ground, which, if you listen, that's the sound of me stomping around in the mud. Now, if we follow this up to the source, this is what was developed starting Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights. And you can still see the residual runoff from when it was still blocked up. I gotta take the long way around because it's still pretty soppy. But it's better than it was, not on Tuesday. Tuesday was like walking on ice. So down in there is the source of the water. So that's the spring that's going to get developed. Last night we put on order the spring box and spring delivery system that's offered by Practical Preppers in Engineering 775. So while that's on order, I started looking into the possibility of finding another spring. And I dug this test hole last night, and it looked pretty much dry. We didn't have rain overnight, so that water's coming from somewhere. The question is that water seeping from the soil here, or is there another water source? And from what I can see looking at the side, looks like it's coming down out of the soil. I should probably dig a drainage ditch to drain that, to get a clue as to where the water is filling that hole from. But farther on down the way here is behind this black raspberry. There was another obvious wet spot that I uncovered last night. Now, here I can see that the water's coming in uphill from where the hole is. But as I was digging, I found gravel. And I stopped because I realized that gravel may have been part of a French drain that ran past the bottom of this catalpa tree and met up with other pipes over here. Now, this is where that French drain comes up. And as you can see, there's water running out of that pipe, which it had not been before last evening. It was clogged with roots, so I had to get my arm in there and grab as many roots as I could. And now that I did, there's water draining that way. So, one of the complications, I believe, is that catalpa tree is grown right into the French drain and is inhibiting it. So digging out that French drain means I'm going to be digging out the roots of the catalpa tree. And we want to keep that tree. But at the same time, if that water that I found last night that may be coming from that backed up French drain, I'm considering bringing in a ditch, another French drain from there over to here, bypassing the catalpa tree completely so I can join this French drain here. Now this French drain feeds in and offers a little bit of a waterfall coming down underneath this bridge that overlooks the pond. There's an upper pond which has been neglected for years, and is filled in, but you can see where the water at one time would overflow the upper pond and fall down rocks into the lower pond. There's some cracks in this pond that we're going to probably take care of with earthcrete eventually. And that water, you can hear it here. It's coming down behind these daylilies into this pond. Now this is the big pond that we hope to clear out and be able to use as a reservoir for the ram pump. Over there on the other side of the pond is where the water used to overpour from the upper pond to the lower pond. Now down at the upper end of this pond, we have another small waterfall that is being fed from that French drain that we had looked at earlier, that my brother had dug out in the initial investigation. So the water that's coming in through this ditch is from his original French drain, plus the water coming from the spring all end up down here. So in addition to drying up the ground, controlling the water, developing the spring so we have potable water, and of course my wife wouldn't be done until she mentioned a spring house near the spring at the top. This is going to be the reservoir for the ram pump. The ram pump was originally installed down, yes, I'll look over this way. Alright, the ram pump was installed down there. You may be able to make out the white pipe snaking its way up the hill. It runs up to the pond at the top of the hill. Now, it was being fed by the dam I had built upstream there. But it turns out that the elevation of this pond is actually higher than the elevation of the dam that I built. And over and above that, this pond, once I clear it out, should have, I'm guessing, 10 times or 15 times as much water as the dam that I built. So in addition to being able to restore the ram pump operation without having to dredge out the dam twice a year, I should have a lot more capability of pumping water to the top of the hill. So these are the water resources that we're trying to harness and control and turn to our advantage. Not to mention that my wife thinks it's going to be a great place to sit and read when we retire. But in the event something happens, we have water. That's it for now. Thanks. Bye.